The fluorescent lights in the compliance office always feel too clean when you've been awake too long. By 2:14 a.m., my eyes were gritty from staring at spreadsheets and denial codes, and the hospital's overnight hush had settled into that eerie rhythm: vents breathing, printers coughing, the occasional distant squeak of a gurney wheel. I was midway through a high-dollar audit when my phone buzzed against the edge of my keyboard. Not a text. A fraud alert. $8,932.14, Luminera Travel Group. For a second, my brain refused to translate numbers into meaning, like it was protecting me from what they implied. Then the details loaded and everything inside my chest tightened. 6 airline tickets. A villa deposit. Island hopping package. All purchased in the last hour. Names listed under passenger notes: Glenn Morrow, Denise Morrow, Caleb Morrow, Sienna Morrow. And Sienna's +1. My name wasn't there. My mouth tasted like copper as I scrolled. A week ago, in my mother's spotless kitchen, she'd said it like she was commenting on the weather, stirring her tea with a silver spoon. "If you can't afford it, Maya, you should sit this one out." I'd swallowed my pride and nodded, pretending it didn't sting. But this wasn't me sitting anything out. This was my family buying themselves a dream with my credit card while leaving me behind on purpose. My fingers hovered over the screen, trembling once, then going still. "I'm not panicking," I whispered to nobody. "I'm documenting." And that's when I finally understood: the trip wasn't the betrayal. It was the proof. But I had no idea what was coming next. People imagine hospital work as scrubs and 4 poles, dramatic codes and heroic saves. My work is quieter. I'm the person who shows up after the adrenaline fades, when the hospital needs to know why the numbers don't match. My title is Revenue Integrity and Compliance Analyst. It's not glamorous, but it's precise. It's procedures and policies, documentation and accountability. I spend my days, and far too many nights, tracking patterns in claims, catching errors before they become audits, and making sure we don't lose millions because someone checked the wrong box. The irony is not lost on me that I can spot financial fraud in a system with thousands of employees. And I didn't want to see it in my own family. At work, I'm the person people trust with sensitive things. My badge grants access to locked departments, not because I'm powerful, but because I'm reliable. I show up. I double-check. I leave a paper trail. I don't make emotional decisions. At home, I've always been the same. My mother calls it being responsible, like it's a compliment. My stepfather Glenn calls it having your head on straight, usually right before asking for something. And my younger brother Caleb, 2 years younger, 9 years more impulsive, calls it Maya the fixer, like it's a joke that makes him charming instead of dependent. I learned the role early. After my parents divorced, Mom's world became a series of emergencies: a cracked windshield, a water heater, a late fee she swore was a bank mistake. I was 16 when I started working weekends at a bakery. By 18, I had a savings account and the quiet fear that if I didn't hold the floor steady, everything would collapse. When Mom remarried Glenn, the emergencies changed costumes but never stopped. Glenn wasn't cruel in obvious ways. He just had a talent for turning his needs into moral obligations. "It's temporary. It's for the family. You're so good with money." I heard it so often it started to sound like love. Caleb's marriage to Sienna should have been the moment I stepped back. 2 incomes, 2 adults, a chance for me to be a sister instead of a safety net. But Sienna arrived with her own brand of polish, designer nails, curated social media posts, a laugh that always landed half a beat too late, and she understood something immediately: my guilt was a lever. The first time she used it, it was subtle. "It must be nice to have someone like you," she'd said at dinner, squeezing my hand. Some families don't support each other. The second time, it came with a Venmo request. Then another. And another. Just until Caleb's commission hits. Just until the lease renewal. Just until next month. Meanwhile, my work hours stretched. One audit turned into 3. A new regulatory update meant weekend training. The hospital's fiscal year-end crept closer like a storm front. I kept telling myself I could handle it. That I was being a good daughter. A good sister. That if I stayed calm, stayed generous, stayed useful, I'd earn a seat at the table that wasn't based on what I could pay for. If only I knew what I was walking into. The first thing I did was open my notes app and start a timeline. 2:14 a.m. fraud alert received. 2:16 a.m. transactions reviewed, Luminera Travel Group, total $8,932.14. My hands were steady now in that way they get when something becomes procedural. A crisis I can solve is easier than a feeling I can't name. I took screenshots, the merchant, the time stamps, the passenger notes, the last 4 digits of the card. Then I called the number on the back of my credit card. The representative had a calm voice, the kind they train into people who deal with panic for a living. Ms. Ortiz, I'm seeing the transactions. Do you recognize these charges? No, I said, and my voice surprised me by not shaking. I don't. Then we'll lock the card immediately and open a dispute. As she spoke, I watched the little loading circle spin on my laptop screen, still waiting for a claims report to populate. Life in 2 lanes, hospital fraud and family fraud. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to throw up. Any idea how someone accessed your card? She asked. I stared at the ceiling tiles, like the answer might be printed there. My mother has my Amazon login, I said slowly. And, my brother used to be an authorized user years ago. I removed him. The representative paused. Authorized users can sometimes be reinstated under certain circumstances. Our investigations team will review the account history. My throat tightened. Please, I said. Flag everything. When I ended the call, my phone vibrated again, this time a text. Caleb, something's wrong with the booking. It won't go through. Can you fix it? No greeting. No apology. Not even the effort of pretending it was an accident. I stared at the message until the letters blurred, then sharpened again. A week ago, Mom had told me I should sit this one out if I couldn't afford it. That conversation came back in perfect detail, like my brain had been storing it for evidence. We'd been at her kitchen island. Her counters were clean enough to reflect light. She'd said flights were expensive this season. Caleb and Sienna deserved a trip after such a stressful year. Glenn had nodded as if he were approving a budget he didn't fund. And you? I'd asked, softly, as if wanting to go made me childish. Mom's shoulders had lifted in that little shrug she does when she's already decided. If you can't afford it, Maya, you should sit this one out. I'd been embarrassed to admit my emergency fund was thinner than usual because I'd covered Caleb's short-term gap the month before. I just nodded. Now I read Caleb's text again. My fingers moved over the screen, slow and deliberate. Me, like you said, I'm sitting this one out. 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. Then the calls started. Mom first. Then Glenn. Then Caleb. Then Sienna. I didn't answer. I put my phone face down and returned to my work, the way I do when I'm triaging something too big to feel. But the vibrations kept creeping into my focus, buzzing like a trapped insect under glass. At 3:03 a.m., I got another text, this time from Mom. Mom, Maya. Stop this. You're embarrassing us. At 3:05 a.m., Mom, call me now. At 3:06 a.m., Glenn, we can talk about it like adults. Don't make this ugly. At 3:12 a.m., Sienna, you're really doing this? Over money? Over money. I looked at the hospital logo on my badge, the word integrity printed beneath it. I thought about how many meetings I'd sat through where leadership spoke solemnly about ethical standards. And then I thought about my family using my card while telling me I was too broke to come. Something in me cooled. I stood, walked to the office kitchenette, and poured myself a cup of water. My reflection in the microwave door looked older than 32. Not in wrinkles. In vigilance. Back at my desk, I opened my password manager and changed everything: email, banking, shopping accounts, cloud storage. I turned on two-factor authentication until my phone was a parade of verification codes. Each click felt like locking a window in a house I'd finally admitted had been burglarized for years. When my supervisor, Daria, passed my desk on her way to the copier, she paused. "You okay?" she asked softly. Her voice wasn't suspicious. It wasn't accusatory. It was just human. I nodded. "Yeah. Just handling something." She studied me for a second, then left a sticky note on my keyboard as she walked away. "You're allowed to protect yourself." The words hit me harder than the fraud alert. And that's when everything shifted. The first crack in my calm came the next morning when I got a call from the bank's fraud department. His name was Tobias, and he spoke the way auditors do: precise, careful, unwilling to promise anything he couldn't document. "Ms. Ortiz," he said, "we've reviewed the initial dispute. There's something you need to know about the account access." I sat at my small kitchen table, the one I'd bought secondhand when I moved into this apartment. Simple, sturdy, mine. Outside, rain tapped the window in soft bursts, and the streetlight across the way smeared into a watery halo. "What did you find?" I asked. "The transactions were initiated through a device recognized as previously trusted," Tobias said. "A laptop that logged into your account 2 nights ago." A device. Not a person. But my stomach still turned. "I don't know what laptop you mean," I said, and hated how small my voice sounded. "We can provide the login history," he continued, "including IP location estimates. Also, your account shows an authorized user was added back 4 months ago." My breath caught. "Added back?" "Yes. Your brother, Caleb Morrow." My mind snapped to a memory I hadn't thought about in years. Caleb at 19, charming and reckless, asking if he could use my card just to build credit. Me saying yes because I wanted to be a good sister. Me removing him later after a missed payment and a fight. "I removed him," I said, each word clipped. "I removed him years ago. According to our records, the authorized user profile was reinstated through your online portal using your credentials." The rain outside intensified, as if the sky was reacting to my pulse. "This wasn't a one-time purchase," Tobias added, gently. "There's a pattern." Smaller charges began shortly after the authorized user was reactivated. My fingers tightened around my mug. Electronics. Restaurants. Clothing. Subscription services. Gas stations in a part of town I never visited. Each one a pinprick that, together, formed a bruise. When we ended the call, Tobias emailed me a case summary. I saved it in a folder labeled evidence and backed it up to a drive my family didn't even know existed. Then I sat very still, listening to the refrigerator hum like a distant engine, and let myself ask the question I'd avoided for years: how long have they been taking from me? I didn't have time to spiral. That afternoon, I was back at the hospital for a meeting with Daria about quarter-end compliance. I was halfway through explaining a coding discrepancy when Daria's phone lit up. She glanced at it, face tightening. "Give me a second," she said, stepping out. When she came back, she didn't sit. "Maya," she said carefully, "did someone from your family call the office?" The room felt suddenly smaller, the air conditioned too cold. "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. "Your mother," Daria said. "She said she's concerned about your mental health." For a moment, my brain went blank, like someone had yanked the power cord. "My mental health," I repeated. Daria held up a hand. "I told her we don't discuss employee wellness with outside parties. But she said you've been erratic and fixated and working too much. She implied you might be having some kind of breakdown." I stared at the compliance posters on the wall, words like confidentiality and professionalism in bold print. Of course. They weren't just trying to get their vacation back. They were trying to make me unreliable, unbelievable, unstable, untrustworthy. So if I pushed back, no one would believe me. I inhaled slowly, forcing my voice into steadiness. "My mother is attempting to interfere with a financial dispute," I said. "She's not concerned about my health. She's concerned about her access." Daria's expression softened, and something like anger flickered in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said. "Do you want HR involved?" "Not yet," I replied, because even saying it made the situation feel more real. "But I want it documented." "Please." Daria nodded. "Already doing it." That night, the call started again, this time from extended family. My Aunt Lydia left a voicemail that began with fake warmth. "Honey, your mom is just worried. You know she loves you." A cousin texted, "Why are you making such a big deal?" Someone I barely spoke to, Glenn's friend from his church, messaged, "Praying for your heart, Maya." Praying. As if boundaries were a moral failure. As if my calm refusal was cruelty. I didn't respond. I opened a spreadsheet instead. Date amount. Who asked what they said what it cost me at first. I entered what I knew, the big charges, the bank's list of small ones. Then I started digging deeper. My checking account showed automated transfers I didn't recognize, small enough to hide in plain sight, frequent enough to add up. I called my bank again, requested 2 years of statements, and asked for linked account access logs. The representative's tone shifted when I said, "Unauthorized transfers." He became crisp, professional. Like I had finally used the correct language. At midnight, I sat on my couch with my laptop open, rain still tapping the windows, and recorded an audio note in an encrypted app. April 3rd, Caleb said his card was frozen and he needed gas money. I sent $120. He never repaid. June 18th, Mom forgot to pay her insurance and asked me to cover it. August 9th, Sienna said Caleb would lose his job if they couldn't pay a fee. I paid it. I paused, listening to my own breathing. There was a moment of grief, sharp and unexpected, not for the money, but for the part of me that had wanted those transactions to mean I mattered. If only I knew what I was walking into. The next day, as if my family's escalation needed a physical form, someone knocked on my door at 7:40 p.m. When I looked through the peephole, Glenn stood there, hands in his pockets, wearing his reasonable man face. I didn't open the door right away. I waited until my pulse settled. Then I turned the deadbolt and opened it only as wide as the chain would allow. "Maya," he said, as if we were neighbors. "Your mom's beside herself. We need to talk like adults." His eyes flicked past me, trying to see inside. "You can talk," I said. "From there." His jaw tightened. "This is getting out of hand." "It got out of hand when you used my card," I replied. He exhaled as if I were a child who didn't understand nuance. Caleb made a mistake. Sienna got excited. It was hectic. Hectic, I repeated. For 4 months? He froze, just for a second, and that was all I needed. So he knew. He stepped closer, and his voice dropped. You don't want to do this, he said. People talk. You have a good reputation at that hospital. Don't make yourself look unstable. There it was. The threat, dressed in concern. My hand tightened around the doorframe. Get off my property. Glenn's smile didn't reach his eyes. Think about what you're doing to your mother. Then he turned and walked away like he delivered a warning and expected compliance. I closed the door, slid the deadbolt, and stood there with my forehead against the wood, feeling something in me harden into a shape I could finally trust. And that's when everything shifted. 2 days later, Tobias emailed me a file labeled Device Access Summary. I opened it at my desk during lunch, the hospital cafeteria clatter fading as my focus narrowed. The login IP address resolved to a location I recognized immediately. My mother's neighborhood. Not just the general area. Close enough that I could picture the exact street, the wide driveways, the perfectly trimmed lawns, the way Mom's porch light always glowed warm like an invitation. I stared at the timestamp. 1:09 a.m., portal login from trusted device. That wasn't Caleb waking up in a panic. That wasn't a spontaneous lapse. That was someone sitting down, calm, intentional, logging into my account while I was at work, and making choices. I felt suddenly cold, the way you do when a room loses heat and you realize you've been living in it anyway. My phone buzzed, and for once it wasn't my family. It was an unknown number with a text that made my stomach tighten in a new way. Unknown, Maya, it's Tessa. Caleb's. I'm not sure if you remember me. Tessa. Caleb's ex-fiancée. They'd been engaged for 8 months before the wedding vanished in a cloud of vague explanations. They wanted different things. It wasn't the right time. She was too intense. I'd met her exactly twice. Both times, she'd looked at my family like she was trying to solve a puzzle no one admitted existed. Tessa, I saw Sienna's posts. About the trip. About you. I've been debating this for a while, but Caleb did something similar to me when we were together. I kept everything. Screenshots. Statements. If you need it, I'll send it. I read the message 3 times. My chest tightened with something that wasn't just anger. Relief. Not the happy kind. The grim kind you feel when you realize you weren't crazy, you were targeted. I typed back slowly. Me, yes. I need it. Then I sat back and let the decision settle into me. For the last 48 hours, I'd been stuck between 2 instincts: disappear quietly, cut them off, and try to heal in silence or create a record so airtight they couldn't rewrite reality the moment Glenn threatened my reputation. The choice had already been made. I wasn't going to play emotional defense anymore. I was going to build a case. Not to punish them. To protect myself. I closed my laptop, stood, and walked back into the hospital with my badge swinging against my chest like a metronome. But I had no idea what was coming next. Tessa emailed me a folder that night. Inside were screenshots of Caleb asking her for temporary help, then insisting she'd offered when she questioned it. Photos of purchase confirmations. A bank statement highlighting transfers that lined up perfectly with his explanations. The pattern was unmistakable: charm, urgency, guilt, denial. And worse, there were messages from my mother. Not directly to Tessa, but in a group chat Caleb had screenshot during one of their fights. My mother, Denise, writing, "If she loves you, she'll help. That's what families do." I stared at the words until my vision blurred. Mom hadn't just enabled him. She'd coached him. The next morning, I took a personal day, something I almost never do, and treated my life like an audit. I made coffee. I sat at my kitchen table. I opened my spreadsheet and cross-referenced bank transfers, credit card charges, text requests, email confirmations, device logins. Each entry got a category: emergency, loan, gift, unauthorized, manipulation, phrase used. Because yes, there were phrases. They repeated like hymns. You're good with money. We're family. Don't be dramatic. After everything we've done. You're the only one we can count on. By noon, my hands didn't shake when I looked at totals. They shook when I remembered my own voice saying, of course, as if generosity were my native language. Then I started building the plan. Step 1: secure independence. I called my landlord and asked about early lease termination. I could afford the fee if I tightened my budget and took an extra shift or two. I'd been keeping this apartment partly because it was close to Mom's house, partly because she liked knowing where I lived. I realized how ridiculous that was. I called a locksmith and scheduled a rekeying for that evening anyway, because even if I moved, I needed to stop pretending access wasn't a weapon. Step 2: formal documentation. I emailed Daria and HR in one thread. My family is attempting to interfere with my employment via false wellness claims. I have a financial fraud case active. Please add this to my file. I didn't add emotion. I added facts. Step 3: boundaries in writing. I drafted a letter: I will no longer provide financial support. Unauthorized access is under investigation. Future contact must be in writing. Any attempt to contact my employer will be considered harassment. Then I did something I'd never done with my family. I added a number. A total. Not a plea. An invoice. Not because I expected them to pay willingly, but because numbers have a way of cutting through fog. I used the same template the hospital uses for overpayment recovery: dates, descriptions, amounts, supporting documentation. A reimbursement request, clinical and impersonal. While my printer hummed, my phone buzzed. A notification from social media. Sienna had posted a story, a selfie with tearful eyes, captioned, "When someone in your family is struggling mentally, sometimes you have to set boundaries to protect your peace." Protect your peace. She was turning my defense into her victimhood. I didn't reply. I clipped the printed pages into a navy folder, the kind I use for compliance meetings, and wrote a label on the spine: Morrow Financial Records. Then I placed it in my bag like armor. If only I knew what I was walking into. Mom invited me to dinner the following Sunday. The text was short, almost formal. Mom, we need to resolve this as a family. 5 p.m. Glenn grilled. Come hungry. Come hungry. As if this were casual. As if they hadn't tried to dismantle my credibility at work. I arrived 10 minutes early and parked across the street instead of in the driveway. From my car, I watched Mom's curtains shift slightly, the way they do when she thinks she's being subtle. I breathed in, slow. Breathed out. Then I walked up to the house with my navy folder under my arm. Inside smelled like lemon polish and grilled meat. The dining table gleamed, set with matching plates like an advertisement for Harmony. Caleb and Sienna were already there, sitting too upright on the couch. Glenn stood near the kitchen, arms crossed, face arranged into concern. Mom smiled like her mouth had been coached. Maya, she said, soft. Thank you for coming. We've been so worried. I sat in the armchair opposite them, placing my folder on my lap. About my health? I asked quietly. Or your vacation? Mom blinked. Don't start like that. Caleb leaned forward, hands clasped. Okay, look. Things got out of control. We can fix it. We'll pay back part of it, I repeated. Sienna's eyes flashed. You're acting like we committed a crime. I lifted my gaze to her. Did you use my credit card without permission? Her mouth opened, then closed. Mom cut in quickly. This is a misunderstanding. Caleb thought, I said, tasting the word. Thought I wouldn't notice? Glenn stepped forward with that same reasonable man posture. You're stressed, he said gently. You've been working too much. People under stress make impulsive accusations. My pulse stayed steady, and I realized with a strange calm that this was the moment they always counted on, the moment I got emotional, the moment they could label me dramatic. Instead, I opened the folder. I slid the first page onto the coffee table. Then the second. Then the third. A neat line of documentation, each page aligned like a patient chart. Here's the Luminera travel charge, I said. Here are the device logs showing login from this neighborhood. Here are the smaller charges over 4 months. Here are the unauthorized transfers from my checking account. Their eyes tracked my hands, not my face. Caleb's skin went pale. Mom's smile collapsed into a tight line. I placed Tessa's screenshots down last. These are from Tessa, I said. Your ex-fiancé. She kept records. Caleb flinched at her name like it burned. Sienna's voice sharpened. Why are you dragging other people into this? Because you dragged my employer into it, I replied, still calm. You dragged our relatives into it. You dragged my reputation into it. I'm just bringing facts. Mom's hands trembled slightly as she reached for a page, scanning it like she could rewrite it with her eyes. This is excessive, she said. Family doesn't do this to each other. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. No, I said. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't threaten. Family doesn't call someone's boss and suggest they're unstable. Glenn's jaw tightened. We were worried. You were controlling, I corrected, voice low. There's a difference. Caleb swallowed hard. I didn't mean to, I held up a hand. I'm not here to debate your intentions. I'm here to tell you the outcome. I reached into my bag and placed a small envelope on the table. Inside were 2 things. A written notice revoking any permission to access my accounts, a spare key to this house that I'd had since I was 21. I slid the key across the polished wood. Mom stared at it. What is that? An ending, I said. I changed my locks. I'm moving next month. And as of today, I'm no longer funding this family. Sienna's breath hitched. You can't, I can, I said, and surprised myself with how steady the words were. And I am. Caleb's voice cracked. Maya. I used the card. I did. I knew your password from when you logged in at Mom's last month. I saved it. I didn't think you didn't think I'd choose myself, I finished. Silence filled the room, buzzing like electricity. Mom's eyes went glossy. After everything we've done for you. There it was. The old script. I nodded once. That's exactly the problem. You think parenting was a debt I owe forever. Glenn started to speak, but I stood. I'm not filing a police report today, I said evenly. But the bank investigation is active. And my employer is aware of the interference. Mom's face drained of color. I walked to the door, hand on the knob, and paused without turning back. I'm not your safety net, I said. I'm your daughter. If you want a relationship, it starts with respect. Then I left. And that's when everything shifted. 3 months later, the sound of my phone buzzing no longer made my shoulders jump. That change alone felt like freedom. My new apartment sits on the 3rd floor of a building that smells faintly of fresh paint and someone's cinnamon candles. Morning light pours through the kitchen window, hitting the leaves of 2 plants I somehow kept alive, proof I can nurture things without being drained by them. The bank reversed the charges after their investigation concluded. Caleb's authorized user access was permanently blocked. I didn't celebrate. I just exhaled. Mom and Glenn went quiet for a while, no frantic calls, no concerned messages. When Mom finally reached out, it was a short text asking if we could start over. I replied with a boundary, not a lecture. We can talk if it's respectful. If it isn't, I'll leave. No apology. No explanation. Just truth. On my living room wall, a small shadow box holds 2 objects, my old spare key to Mom's house and the navy folder label I peeled off after I closed the case. Not a trophy. A reminder. This month, I'm leading a voluntary workshop at the hospital for new hires called Money Boundaries for Caregivers, because I've learned that the people who help for a living are often the easiest to exploit. Sometimes I wonder what healing requires. Forgiveness? Distance? Or simply the courage to stop paying for belonging? If you were me, what would you choose? If you liked this story, feel free to subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next one.